All right, so every single time I get on a call with a relocation client, and I mean every time, this question comes up within the first 10 minutes. Gerald, should I live in DC, Maryland, or Virginia? And look, I've been doing this long enough to know that this question starts more arguments in this region than politics at Thanksgiving, because everybody's got an opinion. Your coworker who lives in Arlington is convinced that Virginia is the move. Your friend that lives in Silver Spring is looking at you like you're crazy if you don't move across that Maryland line. And the person with the DC address, they're not even entertaining this conversation. They know that they made the right call. But here's the thing, nobody's giving you an honest breakdown. Nobody's telling you about the taxes you don't see coming, or the commute that's going to age you 10 years, or why the whole notion of cool neighborhoods is shifting in ways that would have seemed impossible 5 years ago. My name is Gerald Jordan. I'm a top 2% agent in the DC metropolitan area, licensed in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And in 2025 alone, my team closed 65 transactions across all 3 jurisdictions. I'm not picking a side in this conversation because I work all 3 sides of the border every single week. And that's why I can give you the exact take that your cousin who moved here 2 years ago can't. So that's what we're doing today. I'm gonna give you the 2026 reality of living in the DMV, DC, Maryland, and Virginia. The good, the frustrating, and the stuff real estate brochures just never will put in writing. This is no fluff, it's no agenda, just the brutal truth. Now let's get into it. Let's start with the one thing that'll immediately get your attention when you're moving here from out of state: taxes. And I'm not just talking about income tax. I'm talking about the full picture. The stuff that hits your paycheck, the stuff that hits your property, and in Virginia's case, the stuff that hits your driveway. DC has some of the highest income tax rates in the country. Their top marginal rate sits around 10.75 for high earners. Now the thing that surprises people is that DC's property taxes are actually lower than you'd expect. Their rate is around 0.85% of the assessed value. So if you're a renter, you feel that income tax hard. If you're a homeowner, that property tax isn't going to kill you. Maryland is where people get caught off guard. The state income is one thing. It maxes out around 5.75%. Then you've got what's called piggyback tax. That's a county income tax that gets layered on top of state tax. Depending on which county you're in, Montgomery, Prince George's, and Arundel, you're adding another 2.5 to 3.2% on top of what you're already paying the state. Most people who move here from Texas or Florida have never heard about a county income tax in their life. And then they get their first pay stub and they're calling me like something's wrong. Now Virginia has a slightly lower state income tax rate structure. Their top rate is around 5.75 as well, similar to Maryland. Their property taxes vary by county but are competitive. But there's one thing that nobody warned you about until it's too late: the personal property tax on your car. In Virginia, you pay a tax every single year based on the value of your vehicle just to own it, just to have it parked in your garage. It's called the vehicle personal property tax, and it's assessed annually by the county or the city that you live in. If you get a newer car, you should be paying about $400 to $600 or even over $1,000 a year in just some jurisdictions just for having a car. I've had clients move from out of state who genuinely thought their bill was a mistake the first time they got it. So let's put some real numbers on this. Let's say you're earning $200,000 a year and you're choosing between Bethesda in Maryland or Arlington out in Virginia. Both are comparably nice, both are suburban, both are close to DC. The difference in your combined tax burden can easily be between $4,000 to $6,000 a year depending on your situation. That's real money. That's a vacation, that's a car payment, that's 6 months of groceries. The bottom line on taxes is that Virginia tends to come out ahead for many middle to high earners when you factor in the full picture, but the car tax is the wild card. DC is manageable if you're a homeowner, and in Maryland, you need to do the math for your county specifically before you assume it's cheap, and just because home prices look good compared to Virginia. Okay, so taxes are important, but let's be honest. Half of you watching this video don't just want what makes financial sense. You want to know where you're going to feel at home, and that's totally a legitimate question. So let's talk about vibes. DC has a power vibe. DC has an energy that is unlike anywhere else in this country, period. You walk out of your front door and you can be in the National Mall within 20 minutes. World-class museums, all of them are free. You have Michelin-starred restaurants, rooftop bars overlooking the Capitol, and the neighborhoods, Navy Yard, Capitol Hill, Columbia Heights, Pentworth. They each have their own distinct personality. The walkability in the right DC neighborhoods is legit some of the best on the East Coast. And if you want to live in a city where you don't need a car for daily life, DC can make that happen for you. But here's the brutal truth about DC. Parking will test your character. Owning a car in DC proper is almost a philosophical challenge. Street cleaning, permit zones, holiday rules. It's a part-time job just to keep track of where your car is to not be towed. And the prestige of a DC address comes at a price. You're also paying a premium, sometimes a significant one, for square footage compared to what your money gets you, let's say 5 miles away in Maryland or Virginia. The DC tax is real, and it shows up every single time you're at a showing. Maryland has the community vibe. If DC is a city of power, Maryland is a city of people. And I mean that genuinely. Prince George's County, where I was born and raised and currently live, is the most affluent majority black county in the entire United States. Montgomery County is one of the most diverse jurisdictions in the entire country. The food, the culture, the neighborhoods. Maryland has a richness to it that doesn't get talked about enough in relocation conversations. And from a pure real estate standpoint, Maryland often gives you more house for your dollar, more square footage, a yard, maybe a finished basement. The kind of space that's just not accessible at the same price point on the Virginia side or in DC proper. Maryland also gives you green, real green. Trees, parks, trails, the Patuxent River, Rock Creek Park. If you've been living somewhere urban and you want that exhale, that feeling of pulling into your neighborhood and actually seeing nature, Maryland tends to deliver that in ways Virginia's more manicured suburbans do not. The honest Maryland critique: some parts of the infrastructure, roads specifically, feel like they haven't had a serious conversation since 2008. And depending on where you plant your flag, you can be looking at a commute situation that requires patience that I can't describe in a family-friendly YouTube video. Virginia. Now let's talk about Virginia, the efficient vibe. Northern Virginia has been in a glow-up area for the last decade, and it's not slowing down. You have Amazon HQ2 landing in Arlington. Amazon's H2Q landing in Arlington was the exclamation point on something that was already in motion. The tech sector has transformed the economic profile of Nova in many ways that ripple out into everything: the restaurants, the housing demand, the density of highly credentialed professionals walking around. Virginia feels built. The roads are genuinely better maintained. The local government tends to be more responsive. The school systems, particularly in Fairfax and Loudoun counties, consistently rank amongst the best in the country. The vibe is polished. It's efficient. If you want your kids in strong schools, you want low crime stats, and you want your HOA to actually do something when somebody parks on the lawn, Virginia has a version of that for you. Now, my critique of Virginia is that it can feel a little sterile. Depending on the pocket you're in, Nova can feel like it's designed from the algorithm. You have strip malls and townhome communities that all look like they came from the same catalog. The cultural texture that DC and Maryland bring, you have to be more intentional about seeking it out in Virginia. All right, now we talked about money, we talked about culture. Now we have to talk about the thing that will actually determine your quality of life more than anything else: the commute. I want to start with something that everybody living in this region knows is true. I don't care where you live in the DMV. The 495 Beltway at the wrong time of the day will humble you. It doesn't matter how nice your neighborhood is, how good your schools are, how great your tax rate is. If you're on the Beltway at 7:30 in the morning or 5:45 in the evening, you're sharing in a collective of suffering that bonds this entire region together. But here's the 2026 update that actually matters. Things have shifted a little bit. The metro system has expanded its reach in ways that are genuinely changing the calculus on where you can live and where you can work. The Silver Line extension out through Loudoun County, running through Tysons, Reston, Herndon, and all the way out to Dulles, has opened up parts of Northern Virginia that used to feel totally car dependent. If your job is somewhere along the corridor, you now have a real transit option. On the Maryland side, the conversation is still complicated. The Purple Line, Maryland's new light rail connecting Bethesda to New Carrollton, finally operating and starting to create connections between parts of PG County and Montgomery County that historically required you to either take a car or a route through DC first. It's not perfect, and it doesn't solve everything, but it changes the math for specific corridors in a real way. And here's the insight I want you to actually take from this segment. Your commute isn't just about distance anymore. It's about direction. The worst commutes in this region are still the reverse commutes that people don't think through. If you live in Maryland and your job is in Tysons or Reston, historically that was a miserable situation. You're crossing the Beltway, you're potentially going across the American Legion Bridge, and traffic doesn't care about your morning meeting. But now, if you position yourself near the right transit node, you can do Maryland to Virginia without losing your mind. It requires intentionality. You have to reverse engineer your housing search, starting with where you're going before you pick where you're living. The people I've seen make the happiest decisions are the ones who came in knowing their commute constraints first and let that drive the geography. The ones who fell in love with the neighborhood first and figured out the commute second, they call me 18 months later. One more thing that I want to flag here, remote work. A lot of people come into this market in 2026 have hybrid schedule, 2 or 3 days in the office a week. And that changes this conversation significantly. If you're only commuting twice a week, suddenly you can consider markets that would have been brutal on a 5-day-a-week schedule. Upper Marlboro, Accokeek, Stafford, Woodbridge, places where your dollar goes much further and the commute is manageable when it's not every day. All right, so we put all 3 jurisdictions through the same test: taxes, culture, commute. So here's where I land. Maryland wins for space and value. If you want the most home for your money, square footage, a real yard, a garage that fits 2 cars, Maryland is going to give you more per dollar than almost any comparable locations in the DMV. Add to that the cultural richness, the diversity, and the greenery, and Maryland is an underrated option that serious buyers need to stop overlooking just because it doesn't have the name brand of a DC address or the Amazon glow of a Northern Virginia. DC wins for lifestyle and proximity. If walkability matters for you, if you want to be in the middle of the energy, the culture, the dining, the nightlife, if you want to step outside and feel like you're in a real city, DC delivers something that the suburbs just simply cannot replace. And for those people who don't have kids yet, or where your kids are grown, the case for DC is genuinely strong for you. You're paying a premium, but you're paying for a lifestyle that has real value. Now, Virginia wins if you're looking for stability and infrastructure. If you want well-maintained roads, a responsive local government, and a high-growth economic environment where your investment in real estate has strong legs, Northern Virginia makes a very compelling case. It's not the most character-rich environment, but it's reliable in ways that matter when you put your roots down. So let me ask, which one are you? Are you the person who needs space and community? You're Team Maryland. Are you the person who lives for the city, the energy, the proximity? You're Team DC. Or are you the person who wants everything but no? Schools are great. The neighborhoods are great. The HOA is actually going to respond to your email. That's Team Virginia. Drop a comment below. Which one are you? Are you Team DC? Are you Team Maryland? Or are you Team Virginia? And tell me why. I'll read the comments, I'll respond, and I genuinely want to know where this community lands. And if you're not just watching this for entertainment, if you're actually in the middle of a relocation decision right now, I want you to grab my 2026 DMV Relocation Guide. It's in the description below. It walks you through this exact framework, neighborhood by neighborhood, with real data so you can make decisions with confidence, not just vibes. I'm Gerald Jordan, your local DC, Maryland, and Virginia realtor with the Home Team Realty Group, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next one.